Howdy y'all, it's Miss Kelawanda coming to you from a different computer today. I thought I'd use this one because you can see a little bit more of my body. Woo! Compared to the computer I normally sit at. So today we have a very sensitive topic, and I'm just curious how many of you out there, by a show of hands, are experiencing some regain of the weight that you've lost? I have. So I have decided that I'm going to do weekly weigh-ins, and today is actually going to be my week 1 weigh-in, and I want to talk a little bit about losing regain. Just kind of recap for those of you that have never seen my videos before. My name is Kelly, aka Kelawanda. At my highest weight ever, I was 242 pounds. I got down to 143 pounds for about a day, but I was maintaining at 146 pounds for about 8 months. Slowly that weight started to go up a little bit when I hadn't made any changes. I feel I was eating the same foods, exercising the same amount, moving around the same amount, and I got up to 151. I was kind of okay with that. A couple of months ago, I posted a video that I had gotten into making cake pops and stuff like that, and my weight went up to 153. So I kind of attributed that to the sugar. But then suddenly I gained another 3 pounds that I could not account for where it came from. I've been eating the same, like I said, doing the same amount of moving around, exercising. So nothing really had changed. I wasn't doing any additional stress eating. I kept track of my food for a couple days. Nothing seemed unusual. So I have heard before that people's doctors tell them to lose 10 more pounds than where you actually want to be, because there is a 10-pound regain to be expected. I always assumed that was because people kind of went off track. Now that I went through it, I'm not 100% sure. Monitoring my food more closely, I do see maybe I was eating a few too many sweets, but nothing to where I should have gained as much weight as I did. So, in summary, the amount of weight I've regained was around 10 pounds. Like I said, I was maintaining at 146, and when I decided to actually, stop regaining and get back on track, I was at 156. So it's about 10 pounds there. I do want to talk about a couple things first. I'm 5'4". Ideally, for my frame, height, whatever, I'm supposed to weigh around 145 to be in a normal BMI range. I don't really like the BMI because it doesn't account for your muscle mass. It doesn't account for those of us who have excess skin. It doesn't account for a lot of things. It just takes your height and your weight and gives you this little number. I was fortunate enough to be able to have my body weight done for free. It wasn't the most accurate reading. It was like the little handheld ones. But it was kind of interesting because I'd never actually seen that before. So let me hold it up for you and show you what I got. Hopefully you can read that. What it says is that I'm 5'4". That day I reported my weight as 155. So according to the BMI, I was 26.6, which they consider overweight. However, what I think is more important, if you look at the fat category, I'm 28.9% fat. And if you look right in the center where there's a number circled that said for women my age, my weight should be, my percentage of fat should be between 21 and 33%. I'm back. Yay, I'm back. You didn't even know that I left, did you? I actually am going to be Frida Kahlo in a play, so don't mind my outfit. But I had to leave to go do that, so I'm going to finish my video now. So I was talking about body fat percentage. I actually squeeze this little thing, and I don't know if I said this already. I squeeze this little thing, and I don't know, it runs some sort of electrodes through your body or something, electricity, and determines your percentage of body fat. But that day, with that little machine, they said my body fat percentage was 28.9, and for a woman, 21 to 33% is a good range. So I'm actually right in the middle of that. So even though technically the BMI says I'm over by 10 pounds, I still have a good body fat percentage. I was reading this really interesting article. I ripped all these pages out of a fitness magazine when I was at the gym. It says, "You ask, we answer." I read a study that said more than half of normal weight people actually have a high percentage of body fat. How can I make sure I am at a normal and healthy weight? And when I was reading it, it's talking about people who appear to be, I'll just use the word thin, they have a normal range BMI, but technically they can be overweight or obese because of the percentage of body fat that they have. So that's one reason I don't get completely hung up on these numbers. the reason I do want to lose the 10 that I regained is because, you know, I do have to have a limit for myself. I just can't keep, like, you know, moving on up. But, I know it sounds really random and strange, but one way I determine if I've gained weight and I need to lose is if, you can't see me right now because of my outfit, but like, when my collarbones are showing, I always figure that's in a good range. And when I get little fat pads starting to hang up over them, I kind of figure maybe I need to lose a couple pounds. But anyways, when I gained that last 3, you know, the first, when I went from 156 to 153, I couldn't really notice in my body. But when I got up to 156, I definitely was starting to see a difference, maybe in my stomach and in my face a little bit. So anywho, what have I been doing? And my weigh-in, yay! I have this little plan that I follow where I track my food and I eat a certain amount from each food group every day. The biggest thing I noticed at first was I was eating too many grains. As I've mentioned before, grains are what we feed animals before we send them up to slaughter to fatten them up. So to back off on that was a good thing for me. The first couple days I actually went over a little bit in each category. Like I said, I eat a certain amount of servings. The first day I went over in my grains by 2 servings, the next day 3 servings, and the next day I was actually under. So it kind of gave me an idea of where I was at with things. But I went from, in the 1 week, for my 1 week weigh-in, I went from 156.6 to 153.6. So I had a 3-pound loss, which is really incredible. And it's a lot more than I expected to lose, seeing as I'm pretty close to being in a normal weight. I was surprised that I could lose that much in a week. What was kind of discouraging, and I want to tell you guys this so it doesn't discourage you if it happens, 2 days into my diet, I don't like to call it that because it's really just monitoring what I eat and being more careful what I put in my mouth. 2 days in, I went up to 158.8. So I was 2.2 pounds higher 2 days into eating healthy than when I started. In the past, that would have made me be like, oh my God, it's not going to work, and I would have just eaten like a maniac. But I didn't. I said, you know what? I should have only weighed myself once a week anyways, and I didn't keep into consideration that number. But with that being said, I would rather look at that number and say 158.8, and then I weighed myself, like I said, this past Friday at 153.6. So I'm down somewhere between 3 and 5 pounds, which is awesome. So I don't have a specific goal in mind. If I could get back to the high 140s, I'm fine with that. I'm a size 6. I feel healthy. I feel great now that I'm not eating gluten, which is what I mentioned in my last video. So I'm not going to be hung up on that number. And also, knowing now what my body fat percentage is makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I had a couple random things I wanted to show when I was going through that little fitness magazine. The first one is these ridiculous before and after photos. Hopefully you guys can see this well. Okay, so we got this lady here who looks like a lollipop because her body's too small and her head's too big. And we have her before and after photos. I personally think she looked great before, and she looks really scary afterwards. Is that really what people want to look like? So that scared me a little bit. The next one, I thought this one was awesome because those of you who have lost a lot of weight know that when you lose a lot of weight, you have a lot of excess skin. So look at this guy. I think he actually lost weight. And I know this sounds silly, but I was actually happy to see somebody with excess skin in a magazine. Same thing for the girl. I just thought it was kind of neat how they showed that. But anyway, same thing with her. I think she actually looked a little bit better beforehand. I really don't know why everybody wants to look like a lollipop with a big head on their shoulders and a stick body. Jerry, go. My boyfriend's standing listening to me, making me paranoid while I make my video.
What?
Okay, this one kind of made me sad. Normally when I look through the magazine, I don't like, you know, look at them like, oh my God, I actually look like that. But this one actually made me kind of sad when I saw. Because I was like, geez, if I had never eaten like a crazy maniac, I might have some killer six-pack like that. So anyways, that's all. I just blabbed on about nothing. As far as the gluten-free thing, when I made my last video, I was eating at like, we'll say 70% gluten-free and still eating some a little bit here and there. But I would say I'm probably more in the 95% gluten-free range, and I feel awesome. My strength is fully returned. I don't talk in my sleep. I haven't had any blood sugar drops. So I really feel like cutting out the gluten has significantly improved my health. Oh, lastly, during my first week, I know because everyone's always concerned about exercise. What kind of exercise did you do? To me, I believe the nutrition is more important. It doesn't really matter if you go to the gym. Of course, that will aid you in building muscle tone, and it can aid with weight loss, but it really matters what you're doing in the kitchen and what you're putting in your mouth. But anyway, I will tell you what I did. I did 2 days of Zumba, which is normally what I do every week, 1 or 2 days of Zumba. A couple mornings I woke up and I did Just Dance. They have a program on the Wii game called Just Sweat, where you have to hit a certain amount of points. Like 2 or 3 days I did Pilates in the morning, nothing serious, like a 20-minute thing. And then I have this Gazelle thing that I bought for $5 at a garage sale that's kind of like a mini elliptical type thing. So really random exercise, but most importantly to me, I think, is what I'm putting in my mouth. So anywho, thanks for holding me accountable, and you guys will see me in a few days when I do my week 2 weigh-in.